Knowing mental models is valuable. Knowledge doesn't improve decisions. Practice does. Think about learning to drive a car. You can read every driving manual ever written, but until you sit behind the wheel, you won't become a confident driver. Framework thinking works exactly the same way. Great executives aren't born with extraordinary judgment. They build it through small daily habits that strengthen the way they think. Let's look at 5 habits you can start using today. First, slow down before big decisions. Fast is fine, but accuracy is everything. Many people believe executives make lightning-fast decisions. In reality, they make fast decisions on simple problems and slow decisions on important ones. Because every major decision creates a ripple effect. Hiring the wrong executive, launching the wrong product, entering the wrong market. These mistakes can cost years, not just money. That's why experienced leaders create a pause between the problem and the decision. Not because they're confused, because they're disciplined. For example, one of the world's greatest investors, Warren Buffett, is famous for saying that he spends most of his day reading and thinking rather than constantly making decisions. People often imagine billionaires making hundreds of decisions every hour. Buffett does the opposite. He waits patiently until the right opportunity appears. Then he acts with confidence. His philosophy reminds us that activity is not the same as productivity. Sometimes the smartest decision is refusing to rush. How you can practice it. Whenever you're about to make an important decision, ask yourself, am I reacting emotionally or responding logically? What information am I missing? If I waited until tomorrow, would my decision change? A few minutes of thinking can prevent months of regret. Second, separate facts from opinions. One of the biggest traps in business is confusing assumptions with reality. Someone says customers don't like the product. Is that a fact, or is it someone's opinion? A strong executive always asks, what evidence supports this? Imagine you're a doctor. You wouldn't perform surgery based on guesses. You'd first look at test results. Business deserves the same discipline. For example, at Amazon, meetings are known for being highly data-driven. Employees are encouraged to support recommendations with evidence rather than relying only on personal opinions. The idea is simple. The louder voice isn't always the right voice. Good decisions are built on facts, customer insights, and measurable outcomes, not just confidence. How you can practice it. Before accepting any conclusion, ask, what facts do we actually know? What are we assuming? What data could prove or disprove this idea? The more you separate facts from opinions, the clearer your thinking becomes. Third, learn from mistakes without blaming. Every business makes mistakes. The difference is what happens next. Average organizations ask, whose fault was this? Strong organizations ask, what can we learn from this? Blame protects the ego. Learning protects the future. For example, in 1970, NASA's Apollo 13 mission suffered a major explosion in space. The mission that was supposed to land on the moon suddenly became a desperate mission to bring the astronauts home safely. What happened afterward is just as important as the rescue itself. NASA didn't simply celebrate surviving. They carefully investigated every detail of the failure, identified technical weaknesses, and improved future missions. That culture of learning helped make later space missions safer and more reliable. The lesson applies to every workplace. Mistakes are expensive only when you refuse to learn from them. How you can practice it. After completing any major project, ask your team, what worked well? What didn't? What should we do differently next time? This simple reflection turns experience into wisdom. Fourth, think long-term, even when others don't. One of the easiest things in business is chasing quick results. One of the hardest things is building lasting success. Framework thinking encourages executives to look beyond today's numbers. Imagine planting a mango tree. You don't dig it up every week to check whether it's growing. You water it consistently because you trust the process. Leadership works the same way. Many important investments, training employees, building trust, improving culture, or developing new products take time before showing results. For example, when Satya Nadella became CEO of Microsoft in 2014, he didn't focus only on increasing short-term profits. He worked on changing the company's culture. He encouraged collaboration instead of internal competition. He invested heavily in cloud computing and artificial intelligence, areas that required patience and long-term commitment. Those decisions didn't transform Microsoft overnight, but over the following years, they helped reshape the company's future and strengthen its position in the technology industry. Great executives don't just manage the next quarter, they build the next decade. How you can practice it. Before making a decision, ask, will this still be a good decision 5 years from now? Am I solving today's problem while creating tomorrow's opportunity? Am I building something sustainable? The future belongs to leaders who think beyond the present. Fifth, keep expanding your mental library. Framework thinking is never finished. Every book you read, every industry you study, every conversation you have, adds another lens through which you can understand the world. Charlie Munger often spoke about the importance of building a latticework of mental models, drawing ideas from psychology, economics, engineering, history, mathematics, and other fields instead of relying on knowledge from just one area. Because business problems are rarely limited to one discipline. A pricing challenge might involve psychology. A hiring decision may involve human behavior. A supply chain issue could involve economics and geopolitics. The broader your understanding, the stronger your judgment becomes. How you can practice it. Set a simple goal. Every month, learn something outside your profession. If you're in finance, read about psychology. If you're in marketing, study history. If you're an engineer, explore negotiation. Every time you learn a new model, write down in one sentence when you'd use it. A tool you can't recall at the moment is useless. As we're talking about leadership, communication, decision-making, and business growth, there's something interesting I came across the Leaders Toolkit. Sometimes the real challenge is inspiring your team, handling tough conversations, making decisions that actually stick, staying focused under pressure. And it didn't stop at the ebook. You also get a checklist to keep you focused, a resource cheat sheet for quick solutions, and a mind map that simplifies everything into one glance. Simple, practical, and powerful. I've added the link in the description below so you can easily explore it after this video. Framework thinking versus lateral thinking. Why great leaders need both. Imagine you're standing in front of a locked door. Most people immediately start looking for the key. That's logical. That's structured. That's framework thinking. But one person stops and asks, why am I trying to open the door? Is there a window? Is there another entrance? Or maybe I don't need to go into this room at all. That's lateral thinking. Both approaches are valuable. The difference is this. Framework thinking helps you make better decisions within a system. Lateral thinking helps you question whether the system itself should change. Great leaders don't choose one over the other. They use both. For example, for decades, the hotel industry worked in a familiar way. If you wanted a place to stay, you booked a hotel. Most companies competed by building better hotels, offering lower prices, or improving customer service. Then Airbnb asked a question that sounded almost impossible at the time. What if people stayed in someone else's home instead of a hotel? That was lateral thinking. They challenged the existing assumption, but coming up with the idea was only the beginning. The next challenge was much harder. How do you make strangers trust each other? Handle payments? Verify hosts? Those weren't creative questions. Those were framework thinking questions. Airbnb became successful because it combined both ways of thinking. Lateral thinking created the opportunity. Framework thinking built the system. How to manage and achieve all this as a busy executive. You might be thinking, this sounds great, but I already have 100 things on my plate. How do I build and use mental models without burning out? Here's a realistic approach. Integrate. Don't add. You don't need separate mental model time. Instead, plug frameworks into decisions you're already making. Choose one model per week. For 1 week, decide you'll consciously use only the first principles thinking. Next week, focus on second-order thinking. Over time, this becomes a habit, not an extra task. Teach as you go. Every time you use a framework with your team, explain it briefly. This trains them to think in models, which reduces the load on you because the team starts bringing more structured proposals. Document key decisions with the model used. After major decisions, write a short note. We used XYZ framework. Here's what we concluded. Over months, you'll build a decision archive and a culture of structured thinking. The executive SWOT. Let's use one framework to examine frameworks themselves because they're powerful but not magic. Strengths. It turns complexity into clarity. They dramatically speed up decisions and reduce emotional reactions because you're following logic you trusted before the pressure hit, not logic invented in the heat of the moment. Weaknesses. Every framework has blind spots. A framework is a simplification, and simplifications can miss detail. Force a problem into the wrong model, and you get a confidently wrong answer. Opportunities. Learn frameworks from different worlds. The more perspectives you collect, the stronger your judgment becomes. Threats. Becoming too comfortable with your own thinking. Success can quietly convince leaders that their thinking is always correct. History repeatedly reminds us that confidence without curiosity is dangerous. Frameworks multiply good judgment, but they can just as easily protect a bad assumption if you never stop to question whether the model still fits reality. Framework thinking isn't about memorizing clever ideas. It's about creating better habits of thought. It helps you slow down when others panic, see patterns where others see confusion, and make decisions based on principles instead of pressure. Small improvements in thinking lead to massive improvements in decision-making, and better decisions shape better careers. Until next time, remember, average professionals work harder on their tasks. Great executives work harder on their thinking. Think wisely, lead confidently, and I'll see you in the next video.